All right, very cool. Hey guys, so sorry about my lack of animated animated video. Come on, my lack of video. But that's me. You know, I'm here. I'm Kyle. It's really nice to virtually meet all you. Thanks for checking out the movie. I really appreciate it. It's really cool to have it on here. So thanks, guys. Quick little background about the movie, just to give you a little taste. So it started out as my senior thesis at Syracuse University. So it was supposed to be a 20-minute short film, so I can graduate and get my degree and all that. But as I started filming it, it became a lot more intense and a lot more like I wanted to tell a lot more of the story. So that's why it ended up being this length, and I went to more conventions than just the one that I had filmed for my thesis, and it was very cool. Yeah, and if you guys have any questions, I'd love to chat with you about conventions, the movie, horror, all that stuff. I don't know about the NFL draft though, so don't ask me anything about that. Sports. I'm a sports fan, but I can't keep up with draft day. So, but again, thanks for watching, guys. So it's really that's awesome. The first convention that I filmed at and what the reaction was like from the convention organizers. That's a great question. The first one that I filmed at was well, the first one that gave me the idea and what I was going to try to film at was this convention called Syracuse in Syracuse, New York. But I could only go to the convention for like 2 hours, and it was really just to kind of get it a feel and get in the mode of getting ready to film this documentary. So the first like official one I went to was Monster Mania in Hunts Valley, Maryland. So not their Cherry Hill show, but their Maryland show. And I actually didn't hear back from the organizers about whether or not I could film. So I drove from Syracuse to Baltimore, not knowing if I was even going to be allowed in with a camera, but knowing that I just needed to start. I raised this money via Kickstarter to go and film there. So that's why I just went. Luckily, Dave Hagen, who's the organizer, he's not necessarily the best at getting back at emails, but once you're in person, he's a super awesome guy. He puts on a great show, him and his team, and so they let me film there. And the organizer, they didn't. I don't think they expected that they were going to get a feature length. I think they expected me to be like having my own YouTube channel, and they. I think they don't. I didn't think they expected this to be like a real thing. And at the time, I didn't expect it to either. Like I said, I thought it was going to be a short movie, like 20 minutes or less, and so they were really cool about it. What intrigued you about jumping into the genre of horror? As I talked about a little bit in the beginning of the documentary, it's just horror has always been a huge part of who I am, and so I've always really, really liked the genre, even since when I was a kid. Even though I was scared of Chucky, as we were talking about in the chat earlier, Chucky horrified me. But there was still something really intriguing about that genre, that forbiddenness, that fear, that excitement, all that kind of thing. So then I went to film. So I was a horror fan all through high school, all that, and then I went to film school at Syracuse, and that's when I actually like shut my brain off from horror for a little bit, just because so many people were saying that like horror was lowbrow, horror wasn't gonna get anybody anywhere, and I was naive enough to believe that in a way, just because you know I was really confident in wanting to be a filmmaker, but at the same time, like I was learning so much new stuff. So I was, for 2 years, I kind of shut myself off from horror. But then what got me back into it was I went down to South by Southwest and I saw some films down there, and then I knew that there was a place for horror in media, in film, in fan culture, and all of that. And so that's what got me back into it. I now horror is, you know, I'm back home basically. So that's why I like jumping into the genre. It's just I I'm not passionate about as many other genres or as many other art forms as I am horror, so why not be a part of it? As a new face to filmmaking, what has been the hardest struggle to adjust to? Um, I think my confidence in um, I think it was originally it was my confidence in horror. I think that was the biggest part. You know, I was going out to do this documentary, and I I didn't fancy myself a documentary filmmaker to begin with, but I love documentaries and I love learning, and knowledge is really powerful. And there's not a lot of information out there about horror and horror community and stuff like that. So I think the hardest thing to adjust to was wondering if this was going to be something people wanted to see, and I had to battle myself a lot, like questioning whether or not this was going to be something people wanted to see, or if this was also just going to be, you know, my ticket to get my degree at Syracuse and have it not be seen again. Um, so I think that the hardest thing to adjust to wasn't, you know, anything technical. It wasn't anything. It wasn't talking to people. It wasn't interviewing people. It wasn't figuring out what I wanted the story to be. What it was battling myself and my confidence and figuring out, like, you know, I had these ideas, but do people want to see them? And the, you know, the answer to that, not just my battle, but to anybody battling that, is yeah, people are going to want to see it. If you don't make something, it's not going to be seen. But there's at least, you know, there's at least one person out there that wants to see what you're going to make, and you're going to change that person for making something that they're interested in, making something that you, and you're going to change you for making something that you're interested in. Um, by the way, the picture makes it look like we're talking to you from your car. That's very funny. That's yeah. Just this is almost the continuation of Phantasm. Is this chat right now? Where are we at? So I'm sorry. Do you guys have so LP Danfall? Is that what's your first name? And Swilk55. Do you guys have first names? Just so I have them for the sake of having them. Swilk55 asked, how many miles did you log on your trips? Where were all the conventions nearby? No, the closest convention to me was in Worcester, Massachusetts, and that was 4 hours away. You know, I haven't done all the math for the miles. That would be very interesting to do. I'll have to do that and see what it is. But so the furthest away was in Orlando, Florida. I flew down there. I didn't drive because that would have been horrendous. Dan, Shane, thank you so much for your questions. The furthest one was Orlando. I had originally planned to come over to LA to go to Monster Palooza. I wanted to get a West Coast show to film, but unfortunately they were already filming a documentary at the same time that I wanted to go, and that was the only time frame I was going to be able to film in LA. So unfortunately I didn't get to come to the West Coast, but we shot at 6 different conventions. Rock and Shock in Worcester, Spooky Empire in Orlando, 2 Monster Manias, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and then Baltimore, Hunt Valley, Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland area, and then 2 Horror Hounds, Indianapolis, which was the Jamie Lee Curtis show, and then Cincinnati, which was that crazy Walking Dead show that they sold out 2 of the 3 days. It was crazy. As far as conventions that I've been to, I went to 6 Rock and Shocks as a kid. That was like my one convention because I was originally from Connecticut. I am originally from Connecticut, so Worcester, Massachusetts was about an hour 15 away, so that was the closest one for me. I went to a Monster Mania. I'm gonna say probably close to 20 now. 20 conventions I've been to. It's not exact, you know, give or take a couple, but that's probably about 20 conventions. So I'll have to log the mileage on the trips. That's a really good question. I wonder how much it took. The craziest quick story, just the craziest driving experience was the last convention that we shot at, which was Horror Hound Weekend in Cincinnati. We were driving from Syracuse to Cincinnati, which is it said it was going to be like a 12-hour drive. But what we had to do was we had to rent equipment from our school. But rental starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and what we were planning on doing was just driving Thursday night, 4 o'clock, straight through to get to a hotel in Cincinnati, crash for a little bit, and get up and film the next day. And so we're driving, and it's night. Obviously, almost all of it's nighttime at this point, and it's in March, and it starts snowing. I have a Jeep Liberty, so I'm like, okay, it's fine. Like I'm not terrible about driving in inclement weather. But there's nobody else on the road. There's no street lights. We just crossed into Ohio, and whiteout conditions. Like I can't even explain how these whiteout conditions were. I've never been in anything like it. It was horrifying. We were driving 20 miles an hour, but it feels like we were going 60. We couldn't see the guardrail, and we didn't know how close the semi truck was in front of us. Horrible. This is a horrifying, horrifying experience. So we had to pull over for a little bit and just crash in this. Not crash the car. Sorry. We had to chill out in this gas station for a little bit and then continue on. We didn't get to Cincinnati until like 4 in the morning. We only grabbed a little bit of sleep because we wanted to get up and film all the lines and stuff. But it was crazy. We did not pick up Rob, who supposedly hitchhiked to that show. I'd be horrified to pick up a hitchhiker in that kind of weather. That would have been crazy. It was a terrible blizzard. It was really scary. It was probably one of the scariest experiences of my life. It was nuts. So Robert asked, what was the most interesting and shocking thing you have witnessed at a horror convention, and did it happen to occur during one of those ones that you were filming? The most interesting or shocking thing? You know, I mean, the most interesting thing is the costumes and the cosplays, and I know that sounds kind of lame, but it's when I first went, there weren't a lot of people dressed up. When I first went in like 2006, 2007, there weren't a lot of people dressed up, and it's crazy how much it's grown, and um, how excited people get about dressing up and being part of that culture. It was very cool. Um, so that was it was the best. I mean, the craziest experience is probably driving in that. But as far as at a convention, I think just the fact that Horror Hound weekend in Cincinnati has like a night at a water park, it's just so cool because like you see people out of that convention element and like having a good time and just chilling at this water park. And there's people, on the other side of the water park, there's the bar with a concert going on. So like if you didn't want to go to the water park, you have this concert going on, and it's just, I mean, the craziest thing was that, and also filming the Walking Dead panel. I, I'm not a Walking Dead fan. I'm not a Walking Dead hater. It's just I just never watched it. I just never caught up with it and never watched it. It seemed interesting to me. It seems like a great show. I liked some of the actors that are on it. I just never got into it. And at that point, I just wasn't focused on watching The Walking Dead. But going to that panel and seeing how excited people were to hear those guests talk, it reminded me so much of like what it would have been like, what it was like for me to go and see like the Devil's Rejects panel at Rock and Shock, like my first year. Like I was so excited to see that type of panel. This was 20 times the amount of people at this panel, and all of them were as giddy as I was when I saw the Devil's Rejects. It was really, really crazy, and really exciting. It was a huge deal, and it was really cool. As much as people don't like the Walking Dead fans at horror conventions, I think it was amazing. I think it was a really, really incredible thing to have happened. It was cool. When did you start? When you started your dream to do film, was there a person or movie you really really wanted me to go for it? It's funny. There was one that started me off like right off the bat, and a lot of people will say this, but it was George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, but that stemmed from me seeing the remake of Dawn of the Dead and falling in love with horror again in that way. Like I said, I was a huge fan of the Universal monsters and all that classic horror. With my grandparents, they showed us that a lot. Showed me that a lot when I was a kid. But then, as I got older and I was able to see, you know, current horror that was coming out, seeing the Dawn of the Dead remake, like really got me kickstarted to do it. And then, like I said before, I had and still have to some extent like some confidence issues. So I would find these movies and I would just be like, not jaded is not the right word, but I would be down on myself. I was like, man, I'm not gonna make a movie like this. I can't. These are all incredible. Like I don't even know if I want to film horror. But then I'd see another one. I would see, you know, um, trying to think of one. The one that I saw at South by Southwest, and you know, I saw VHS at South by Southwest, and that gave me the first like next boost of I can do this. It was seeing VHS and also meeting Joe Lynch down there, who was also from Syracuse. So knowing that somebody graduated from my program and is out there making horror content, successful horror content, with that that has fans and that has a following, and he's such a good dude in general. Like it made me know that I can do that. So there's films that come along. There's filmmakers that come along. I'm obviously inspired by Romero and Carpenter and all that, but I'm also super inspired by, Lucky McKee, who did May and the Woman, and, like I said, Joe Lynch and Adam Green, big fans of those guys. I like their films, but even more so, I like those people as humans and what they bring to the genre. They're not just these guys behind the camera that you don't know about. They have a personality and a following and a respect for the genre and the fans, and I that's really inspiring to me. And what has been carrying me through since I started Phantasm is people and fans and filmmakers and films like those. Um, Rob asked, "Who was your favorite celeb to talk to for the film, and who has been your favorite all-time celebrity to meet and why?" It's interesting. As far as celebs that I talked to for the film, some of the convention guests. I mean, I think talking to Joe Lynch was one of my favorites, just because he is such a fan turned into a filmmaker and tastemaker and just a really good dude. So it was great to see somebody who he was telling me stories about going to Weekend of Horrors when he was younger, and now he's a guest at a horror convention, and it's just very cool. Talking to Tom Atkins was also way cool. He's just such a good dude. My favorite all-time celebrity to talk to and meet, that's a really, really hard question, because at this point in my life, it's going to a show is not necessarily meeting the guests anymore. It's about meeting other fans and vendors and stuff like that. So I'll have to think about that some more. I mean, I don't want to say Joe Lynch again, but he's been really, really great, and an inspiration in multiple ways. So that's really cool that he was such a good dude like that. But talking to Tom Atkins, talking to people like, Doug Bradley was always really cool to talk to. Derek Mears, hands down, is always a pleasure to talk to. He's a really great dude. I think actually probably my all-time favorite person to talk to is Derek Mears. Another quick story: before the year in high school, my senior year of high school, I went to Rock and Shock, and I was on. We had a morning show at our high school, and I was the entertainment host on this morning show. And so we decided to go. We decided to go to Rock and Shock and film and just have a couple like Halloween episodes for our morning show. And we decided to interview Derek Mears, who was super cool about it. He just finished doing Friday the 13th, and he wasn't doing a lot of other stuff. He was doing like commercial work and other prosthetics work and stuff. But he was really nice, and at the interview he lifted me up, and dude is so tall and so strong. Like I thought it was never going to stop him lifting. I thought he was just going to throw me through the roof. It was crazy. And actually 4 years later when I went to Syracuse, he actually remembered picking me up and doing that, 4 years later. And just, when there's guests like that at shows, and there's people like that involved in the horror community, it makes us fall in love with the genre all over again. And he is a really, really good dude. Cop out question from Shane. Favorite horror movie? Oh, that is Tourist Trap. Um, I it's not my absolute favorite. My absolute favorites are the ones that people always say, like John Carpenter's Halloween, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. But one that I have to pick, because I have to pick an obscure one, is Tourist Trap, which I'm also super upset about them cutting out 5 minutes for this recent Blu-ray release, but still going to pick up the Blu-ray release, and that's a great one. Rob asks, in meeting people at the conventions to make the film, did you make any new friendships that now have you meeting with specific people at conventions? Yeah. I had known the crew from Fright Rags, Ben Scrivens, and Christy Jett prior to filming this convention. But they introduced me to so many people just because, like I said in the film, I was a teenager, and I didn't know, when I was a teenager going to these shows, I wasn't trying to meet new people because I was with my parents, and like that wasn't what it was about for me. But now that I'm a 22-year-old guy now, I was a 21-year-old guy filming that, it's about making a connection with people. And I've met a lot of people, especially from the vendors that I interviewed. They've introduced me to new people. So every chance I get, I'll try to meet up with people at conventions. And some people know me from making this film now, so we want to chat horror and talk horror because we're at the same show, and it'll be fun, and just meeting new people. So then you go off into each other's lives, and you stay in touch, and you see them on Facebook and what their kids are doing. That's what people were talking about when I was interviewing them. I didn't think it was going to happen to me, but I found that horror family, that convention family, just by making this film, which is really, really cool. Any horror crushes on any certain scream queens? I mean, Maria Quigley, just always, and I wasn't even born when she was doing her stuff, but it's just so cool to see that scream queen be loved and cherished so much that I can't help but be giddy, And I mean Danielle Harris is great. More recently, oh, you know what? And this is gonna sound terrible because I can't remember her name. It was she was in The Woman and Jugface. I want to say Anna Lynn Carter. No, not Anna Lynn Carter. I'm gonna look it up because I'm totally forgetting. I think she's great. No, Pollyanna McIntosh. McIntosh. Yeah, McIntosh. I think she's great. She's wonderful. And she was at Horror Hound this last time, and I wasn't able to go and meet her, which is probably good because I would just be like, I like your movies, bye, and that would be as far as I went. But it's just great to see fantastic actresses and actors in these new. Yes, thank you, Polly. Seeing these actors and actresses in these indie horror flicks, it's in a way kind of the home video boom. It's my generation's home video boom, is seeing these indie actors and actresses and having these high respect. I have such a man crush on AJ Bowen. It's stuff like that that makes it exciting. So he's my horror crush, AJ Bowen. But I also like Pollyanna McIntosh recently. Now that you've filmed the love letter to the horror convention, what is your next project going to be? Well, I want to get into narrative horror filmmaking. I want to see if I can expand upon Phantasm a little bit. Not necessarily adding more to this film, but seeing if there's more I can do with it. I think I think like a Travel Channel-esque show, like a half-hour show about a single convention. Each episode would be very, very cool. So that's actually what I'm trying to see if I can work on. But other than that, I just finished writing a short that I want to go back to maybe Syracuse or New England to film. Because I'm living in Los Angeles right now, but I'd like to go um, back to New England and do something like that. It would be very cool to have that show, the Phantasm-esque show on Indie Horror TV. That'd be very, very cool. I would like to make it happen at some point. It's just, it's finding the right place for it. It's finding the money for it. It's finding the time, and hopefully, it can make it happen. It'd be very cool. But right now, yeah, I just finished writing this horror short. It's in its third draft right now. Got to tweak it a little bit more, but I'd like to shoot that, and that would be kind of um, my narrative directorial debut, which would be very cool to do. To do something, outside of school, of course. It'd be very cool to do that. So that's what I got going on next. I have a feature in mind, but it's quite an undertaking. So I'm just kind of letting it stew and letting it just setting it on the back burner, so I can focus on getting this film Phantasm a physical release, physical distribution, so people can um, physically have a copy of it, and get that out there. So I'm really glad that things like Indie Horror TV exist to showcase it online, for people who haven't been able to see it at a convention. But now I think I really want to have it on DVD and get it out there for some people. Robert asked, now that you've... Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's my bad. What we got? Dan asked, if you weren't doing horror, what would you most like to work on next? I really... I guess the Phantasm TV show would still be considered horror in a way. But if I wasn't working on horror, I do a little bit of comedy writing with a friend of mine, and we had this idea for this college graduate comedy, and we've been tossing around ideas and stuff. I would still love to do that, and also, like I said, I didn't fancy myself a documentary filmmaker, but I love documentaries, and I'm super passionate about folk music too. Specifically, this festival that I used to go to every year called Newport Folk Festival in Newport, Rhode Island. Now, I'd really like to. That festival is so rich and full of history, yet it's so under the radar of festivals because things like Coachella and Bonnaroo and Lollapalooza exist. That it'd be really cool to like show that the heart and true love of folk music, and what this is actually like a profit music festival. Like, it'd be really cool to do a documentary on that. I just love being informative and teaching people things or exploring things. Those are things that I love to watch, and I'd love to be able to kind of give back to people in that way. So documentary would actually probably be where I would be, but I do a little bit of comedy too. So Rob asked, what has the reaction been like to your film from the various film festivals you've entered it to? It's been really, really cool. So like, I originally I had just sent it to some conventions, just to show it there, because that's where people would want to see it. Is like, it's only, the film's only an hour, so it wouldn't take a long time away from their convention going. It was kind of just meant to send out to there. And but I came across some horror some horror film festivals and other stuff, and actually it's won a couple of awards, which is really cool. So it's screened at Rock and Shock and Horror Hound, which I'm super thankful for, because those conventions mean so much to me. But I've also been lucky enough to have it just get accepted at Days of the Dead in Indianapolis in June, so it'll be screening there. And I also it's screened at Pensacon in Florida, and those are conventions that it's been at, and I'm sorry, Rhode Island Comic Con too, which has been super cool. But it's been to actual festivals, and it won the audience award for best documentary at the New Hollywood online film festival, which is like the first of its kind, is this online film festival. And then it just won best documentary at Hollywood Horror Fest, which is really cool. It's been a response that I didn't expect at all, and I'm so incredibly thankful for. And I'm so excited to continue to get the film out there, people, via festivals and conventions, and then finally, onto DVD and some physical format. So it's been incredible. It's been a really, really great experience, and I'm so happy that people care and enjoy watching it. Yeah, if anybody has any final questions, shoot. I'd love to answer them for you. But I mean, of course, if you think of something after this, you can tweet at FANTASMDoc, Phantasm with an F, or you can like us on Facebook and write on the wall there, all that kind of stuff. My Twitter handle is KRKuchta, at KRKUCHTA. You can tweet at me there too. Yeah. Yeah, there it is. Awesome. I should have just wrote it in the chat there. Thanks, thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. And the other one is Phantasm Doc. Boom. There's the other one. Well, I really appreciate all the questions, guys, and thank you so much for watching the movie. I really appreciate it. It's really awesome. I stay tuned for the world premiere of Psycho Street on here. That'll be wicked cool. I'm excited about that. I hope you guys are too. And thanks again, guys. This has been great. Yeah, I'd love to come back. I'll definitely keep an eye on what you guys got showing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Adjust Your Tracking the other night too. That's one of my favorites. Oh, thanks for the claps, man. Appreciate it. You guys are great. Have a good night, everybody.